Chapter 66 of Lorna Doone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Lorna Doone by R. D. Blackmore. Chapter 66 Suitable Devotion. Now Kickums was not like Winnie any more than a man is like a woman, and so he had not followed my fortunes except at his own distance. No doubt but what he felt a certain interest in me, but his interest was not devotion, and man might go his way and be hanged, rather than horse would meet hardship. Therefore, seeing things to be bad, and his master involved in trouble, what did this horse do but start for the ease and comfort of Plover's Barrows, in the plentiful ration of oats abiding in his own manger. For this I do not blame him. It is the manner of mankind. But I could not help being very uneasy at the thought of my mother's discomfort and worry, when she should spy this good horse coming home, without any master or rider, and I almost hoped that he might be caught, although he was worth at least 20 pounds, by some of the king's troopers, rather than find his way home, and spread distress among our people. Yet, knowing his nature, I doubted if any could catch, or catching, would keep him. Jeremy Stickles assured me, as we took the road to Bridgewater, that the only chance for my life, if I still refused to fly, was to obtain an order forthwith for my dispatch to London, as a suspected person indeed, but not found in open rebellion, and believed to be under the patronage of the great Lord Jeffreys. For, said he, in a few hours' time you would fall into the hands of Lord Feversham, who has won this fight, without seeing it, and who has returned to bed again, to have his breakfast more comfortably. Now he may not be quite so savage perhaps as Colonel Kirke, nor find so much sport in gibbeting, but he is equally pitiless, and his price no doubt would be higher. I will pay no price whatever, I answered, neither will I fly. An hour agone I would have fled for the sake of my mother and the farm, but now that I have been taken prisoner, and my name is known, if I fly the farm is forfeited, and my mother and sister must starve. Moreover, I have done no harm, I have borne no weapons against the king, nor desired the success of his enemies. I like not that the son of a bona roba should be king of England, neither do I count the papists any worse than we are. If they have aught to try me for, I will stand my trial. Then to London thou must go, my son. There is no such thing as trial here, we hang the good folk without it, which saves them much anxiety. But quicken thy step, good John, I have influence with Lord Churchill, and we must contrive to see him, ere the foreigner falls to work again. Lord Churchill is a man of sense, and imprisons nothing but his money. We were lucky enough to find this nobleman, who has since become so famous by his foreign victories. He received us with great civility, and looked at me with much interest, being a tall and fine young man himself, but not to compare with me in size, although far better favoured. I liked his face well enough, but thought there was something false about it. He put me a few keen questions, such as a man not assured of honesty might have found hard to answer, and he stood in a very upright attitude, making the most of his figure. I saw nothing to be proud of at the moment in this interview, but since the great Duke of Marlborough rose to the top of glory, I have tried to remember more about him than my conscience quite backs up. How should I know that this man would be foremost of our kingdom in 25 years or so? And not knowing, why should I heed him, except for my own pocket? Nevertheless, I have been so cross-questioned, far worse than by young Lord Churchill, about his Grace the Duke of Marlborough, and what he said to me, and what I said then, and how his Grace replied to that, and whether he smiled like another man, or screwed up his lips like a button, as our parish tailor said of him, and whether I knew from the turn of his nose that no Frenchman could stand before him. All these inquiries have worried me so, ever since the battle of Blenheim, that if tailors would only print upon waistcoats, I would give double price for a vest bearing this inscription, "No information can be given about the Duke of Marlborough." Now this good Lord Churchill, for one might call him good by comparison with the very bad people around him, granted without any long hesitation the order for my safe deliverance to the Court of King's Bench at Westminster, and Stickles, who had to report in London, was empowered to convey me, and made answerable for producing me. This arrangement would have been entirely to my liking, although the time of year was bad for leaving Plover's Barrows so, but no man may quite choose his times, and on the while I would have been quite content to visit London, if my mother could be warned that nothing was amiss with me, only a mild, and as one might say, nominal captivity. And to prevent her anxiety, I did my best to send a letter through good Sergeant Bloxham, of whom I heard as quartered with Dumbarton's regiment at Chedzuy. but that regiment was away, in pursuit, and I was forced to entrust my letter to a man who said that he knew him, and accepted a shilling to see to it. For fear of any unpleasant change, we set forth at once for London, and truly thankful may I be that God in his mercy spared me the sight of the cruel and bloody work with which the whole country reeked and howled during the next fortnight. I have heard things that set my hair on end, and made me loathe good meat for days; but I made a point of setting down only the things which I saw done, and in this particular case, not many will quarrel with my decision. Enough, therefore, that we rode on, for Stickles had found me a horse at last, as far as Wells, where we slept that night, and being joined in the morning by several troopers and orderlies, we made a slow but safe journey to London, by way of Bath and Reading. The sight of London warmed my heart with various emotions, such as a cordial man must draw from the heart of all humanity. Here there are quick ways and manners, and the rapid sense of knowledge, and the power of understanding, ere a word be spoken. Whereas at Oare, you must say a thing 3 times, very slowly, before it gets inside the skull of the good man you are addressing. And yet we are far more clever there than in any parish for 15 miles. But what moved me most, when I saw again the noble oil and tallow of the London lights, and the dripping torches at almost every corner, and the handsome signboards, was the thought that here my Lorna lived, and walked, and took the air, and perhaps thought now and then of the old days in the good farmhouse. Although I would make no approach to her, any more than she had done to me, upon which grief I have not dwelt, for fear of seeming selfish, yet there must be some large chance, or the little chance might be enlarged, of falling in with the maiden somehow, and learning how her mind was set. If against me, all should be over. I was not the man to sigh and cry for love like a Romeo. None should even guess my grief, except my sister Annie. But, if Lorna still loved me, as in my heart of hearts I hoped, then would I for no one care, except her own delicious self. Rank and title, wealth and grandeur, all should go to the winds, before they scared me from my own true love. Thinking thus, I went to bed in the centre of London town, and was bitten so grievously by creatures whose name is Legion, mad with the delight of getting a wholesome farmer among them, that verily I was ashamed to walk in the courtly paths of the town next day, having lumps upon my face the size of a pickling walnut. The landlord said that this was nothing, and that he expected in 2 days at the most a very fresh young Irishman, for whom they would all forsake me. Nevertheless I declined to wait, unless he could find me a hayrick to sleep in, for the insects of grass only tickle. He assured me that no hayrick could now be found in London, upon which I was forced to leave him, and with mutual esteem we parted. The next night I had better luck, being introduced to a decent widow, of very high Scotch origin. That house was swept and garnished so, that not a bit was left to eat, for either man or insect. The change of air having made me hungry, I wanted something after supper, being quite ready to pay for it, and showing my purse as a symptom. But the face of widow McAllister, when I proposed to have some more food, was the thing to be drawn, if it could be drawn further, by our new caricaturist. Therefore I left her also, for liefer would I be eaten myself than have nothing to eat, and so I came back to my old furrier, the which was a thoroughly hearty man, and welcomed me to my room again, with 2 shillings added to the rent, in the joy of his heart at seeing me. Being under parole to Master Stickles, I only went out betwixt certain hours, because I was accounted as liable to be called upon; for what purpose I knew not, but hoped it might be a good one. I felt it a loss and a hindrance to me that I was so bound to remain at home during the sessions of the courts of law, for thereby the chance of ever beholding Lorna was very greatly contracted, if not altogether annihilated. For these were the very hours in which the people of fashion and the high world were wont to appear to the rest of mankind, so as to encourage them. And of course, by this time, the Lady Lorna was high among people of fashion, and was not likely to be seen out of fashionable hours. It is true that there were some places of expensive entertainment, at which the better sort of mankind might be seen and studied, in their hours of relaxation, by those of the lower order, who could pay sufficiently. But alas, my money was getting low, and the privilege of seeing my betters was more and more denied to me, as my cash drew shorter. For a man must have a good coat at least, and the pockets not wholly empty, before he can look at those whom God has created for his ensample. Hence, and from many other causes, part of which was my own pride, it happened that I abode in London betwixt a month and 5 weeks' time, ere ever I saw Lorna. It seemed unfit that I should go and waylay her and spy on her, and say,